good one. And today we want to talk about what an 808 bass line is, where it comes from, why it's called what it is, some confusion around it, all those things. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to make a very wild and crazy take on what this actually is. So first of all, what is an 808? That's the thing behind me. I put up a picture. It's a drum machine. Can make a bass line with it. We'll get into how that came to be. The 808 was and is a drum machine that came out in the early 80s, and it was basically a commercial failure. A lot of people didn't like the synthesized drum sounds, and they wanted a drum machine that used samples of real drums. So I believe it was discontinued in 1983, right? So as a result of that, they became pretty cheap, and people started using them for other things because they were available. This is my understanding of it. Long story short, it became a very important sound in a lot of genres of music, especially hip hop. That's a big one. Now 808s are like everywhere. They're in everything. So where the sound actually comes from is the bass drum sound, which is a very simple sound to make. It's basically just a synthesized sine wave. So I'm going to show you how to make one in a second, but a lot of the sauce of an 808 comes from the fact that you can take this sine wave and you can tune it, you can change the decay time, you can adjust the glide between the different notes to get all these like all those kinds of sounds. But at the end of the day, it's a very, very simple thing to synthesize. And if you're new to any kind of sound design, this is probably where I would start, just because you can get up and running pretty quickly. So now the first thing you're going to need to make the basic 808 sound that we are going to totally go crazy with later is an instance of Operator, right? And now cool. Right, so we have a basic sine wave. That's the default setting here. And we're only going to need this one oscillator for now. So let's turn off all the other ones, and we're going to just focus on this one. So we need a basic envelope. We're going to leave the attack at 0. Then let's set the decay to like 1.9-ish. And then let's take the sustain and bring that down to about minus 10, 15. There we go. That's more the 808 range, that low sine wave. And I mean, that's already like starting to sound like something in the neighborhood of what we want, because it's such a simple sound. It's just a sine wave. But anyway, let's take the release. I'm going to turn this up actually. So it hangs a little bit after I let go of the key. I'm just using my computer keyboard, by the way. But anyway, so now the next thing we need to do is, this is a monophonic sound. So let's see, I forget where this envelope is here. I believe it's here, yeah. And then we got to make it one voice. Because like, if I hit 2 keys, for example, like if I set this to 2 voices, then you can kind of get chords. You're not going to want that. It's just going to muddy up the bass. So you want this to only play us one pitch at a time, right? This is all super basic programming stuff, right? But next thing we need is, you want to turn the pitch envelope on, right? And then I'm going to look for a decay time of probably 50 to 100-ish. There we go. Yeah. Good, yeah, I just need a little bit of pitch drop, right? I think if we do this, yeah, you can get it to be crazier, or you can make it take longer to happen. Right, so messing with this pitch envelope is going to really change the pitch predictably, but it can do it in an extreme way that gets it very out of the 808 range. So you don't want to do that. But anyway, so that's our pitch. The next thing that we want to do is turn the glide on around the same range, 50. So now what I'm doing is I'm holding two keys, like I'm hitting a C, and then if I hit G, it's going to glide up to that. Maybe that's easier to hear in the other octave here. I hope I'm sending audio here. Oh my God, yeah, I am. Okay, sorry, panic. But anyway, so that's getting most of our pitch stuff done, right? And okay, so at this point, this is like your basic. It's like a basic 808 sound, but it's like as basic as you can kind of get, right? What we really need to get to is how we spice this thing up to make it sound more modern, because this is so low. If you're listening on a phone, you probably won't be able to hear it very well. So what we're going to need to do is add some overtones with some kind of distortion. There are a million ways to do this, but I'm going to use the Ableton plugin pedal. All right, and put this after this, and then we're going to add some distortion. So let's go with the fuzz setting, and we're going to go to 36 at the gain. All right, I might want to change the octave of that again, but we'll cross that bridge when it comes. Let me see here, and maybe let me just bump this down the octave. Yeah, there we go. Cool. That's nice and fuzzy. Let's go back here. Okay. And if you try the different distortion modes, like they all sound a little bit different. Like this, just on overdrive, that's already like still sort of a clean sound, but it has a chance of being heard on a phone or something without much bass. You know, so, and you could play around with that, like distort, different vibe, different sound. It's because it's adding different overtones, you know. And if you even want to get really creative, you can start to do things like you can automate stuff. So like maybe we take this distortion control, automate it, and then maybe, nah, that's not quite right. Let me make it curve a little bit. I think I'm getting some popping from the stream record, but so whereas something like this is more subtle. Again, distort. That's an interesting sound. So then what you would do to use this is, like, say if I wanted to go with that one, I would freeze it and then flatten it. And then here, if you hit Command J on the Mac, that's going to crop it. But then also, you see how the gain is all the way down here? If you just double click, now it's going to be normalized. So then you could just take this sample and, you know, render it out and dump it into a sampler, or put it into a sample library, or whatever you want to do. But anyway, that's one version of the 808 that you can do, right? Then kind of the next step. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this, right? Okay, and now we're going to make another chain. Macros, come on. There we go. Sorry, I can't see very well, right? And I'm going to change this to like something like op kick, so we see what's going on, right? Then I'm going to make a new chain, right? And then I'm going to put my sampler in here. My bad for this, people. But anyway, now what you can do is you can load in an acoustic kick sample. If I go to samples, let's just find one. No. Something like that's fine. All right, I can load this guy in, right? And now, if I I should chop out the other guys. I didn't realize this was a longer loop. Now what you can do is you can shape the kick and the 808 together, which is like a common sound in a lot of music. But yeah, so we can actually shape this so that the kick hits right away. And let me zoom in here. I can actually, yeah, get a little more click at the front of that. And then I can make the 808 come in after that. So that way I don't have to go in and, like, when you go to mix this, I don't have to fight the two things to get them to have space for each other. We just make the 808 wait a little bit. Right, okay, that's good. That's coming there. I want to turn the scale parameter down here on the kick drum also, because I don't want the pitch of my kick sample to interfere or to change with the different pitch of the 808. I want the kick to just be the kick, and I want the pitch of the bass line to change. All right, I'm actually gonna bring this down just a touch and add some mid-range in the fuzz here. I also don't, I think this needs to hang around for less time. Cool. Okay, cool. That's sounding more like what I want to hear. It's a little bit more punchy. And the length of it isn't... the length of it wasn't interfering with it. But anyway, you get the idea. I was trying to play it a little bit to see if it was feeling right. And then I'd kind of adjust from there. So you could see I was saying, like, okay, maybe I have to do this, you know, to change the amount of time it hangs around with the decay, for example. Or maybe you go in and you want to adjust the pitch envelope or change the glide time. Cool. So now we have kind of a composite kick and 808 bass line thing. We have a pitched bass line, which is really coming from, like, what was originally a kick sample, like we said in the beginning. But this might, for your purposes, might be enough to just get the basic bass line idea that you want to have going. Okay, so I guess this is like part 2 of the video where the stuff gets wild, as promised. So I took these basic 808 sounds. I'm going to take the one we just made, throw it through here. And then I sent all of that through this crazy effects rack. This whole thing, I'll explain in a second, but it was inspired by some things I picked up from Mr. Bill, and especially Little Snake. He's a really interesting producer, and this kind of sound is all over his latest releases. Here is basically how it works. And let's start with that 808 sound. Very puffy, you know. Let's see what it just turns into through this rack. All right, so after the sound stops, there's like still quite a bit of things happening. So what's happening, all right, step by step, is we have our 808, right? And then it hits a saturator. Let me just turn all this off so you can hear each step of the chain. It hits a saturator. That's just basically clipping the shit out of it, all right? Adding a lot of overtone stuff, right? Then we have a vocoder. This is interesting because, and this is, I think, a Mr. Bill trick, I believe. You can kind of use this, the way how it's set up with external carrier, right? You're taking the audio from the track, from the track below it, I guess, but let's set it to the same track. That's what it should be. You can kind of use this as an EQ, sort of, to limit some of those overtones. Okay. So that's kind of cool, right? And you could change, depending on all these settings, because there's so much happening after it, small changes here, like in the formant or the depth, or little changes turn into big things later on in the chain. And it's kind of hard to predict what it's going to do. But like I said, this is a very like Mr. Bill thing where like you're just throwing effects on top of each other and that kind of becomes the synthesizer. So it's an interesting way to do stuff that's I like because it often surprises me, right? But then the other trick I picked up, so we have this, it's kind of sucking a bunch of the low end out of it, but we'll fix that in a second. What Mr. Bill showed the world here is if you just take, because of the way the cutoff filters are for each of the bands in the multi-band dynamics EQ, you can stack up a bunch of them and make an all-pass filter out of it. And it has to do with, I forget exactly how this works, but it has to do with like the way the phase shift between the filters sums up after all these instances of it, right? But then I started messing around with this. I was like, okay, this is interesting. What if we did something even more crazy and did it with OTT, which I believe stands for over the top, lives up to the name, right? So I just made the same rack again. With all this compression happening. So you get the all pass effect, but also what ends up happening is the stuff that I would call like deep in the tail, like this, like, because you see on the waveform, it's like, okay, it gets quieter and quieter, right? There's still, even at the very quietest moments, there's still like a little bit of something going on. And then I guess how I think about it is even after the sound stops, there's still like noise in the plugin that's noise in the signal chain that's getting multiplied many times. That takes a second to work its way out of all these instances of OTT, which is why when you play this back, even after the audio stops in the track, there's like all this stuff. Right? And I think it's probably going to be different depending on the sample, right? So similar artifacts, it's a little different. Definitely not the same. Yeah, that was really different. So I'm going to just turn this track off, by the way. Yeah, there was like some kind of stereo ping-pongy thing happening. You know, and you could stop here, but I just decided to say fuck it and put another saturator on it. Right? And now, if we make some adjustments here, this should sound pretty different. Yeah, this is so wild to me. All right, let me actually try reducing the number of bands. This is uncharted territory for me, anyway. I haven't actually planned out this part of the video. Interesting. Okay. This is gonna probably make a big difference. Let's just change this to like folded. Yeah, crazy. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. This is like a very experimental thing. Let's just copy and paste the whole thing, just to know, because I haven't actually tried this before. Not with, because I just made this little 808 rack. So let's see here. All right, that was wild in all the best ways. I'm all here for it. Let me. All right, so what I'm noticing, right, is that there's something happening for the duration of the 808 sound, but then there's like once I take my finger off the key, there's like all this other stuff that happens, and I noticed that with these samples as well. So the way that I was using this is I'm just gonna make another track below it and just resample the output of this, because that output is so wild, and it could be so many things that are just beyond an 808 or beyond the bass, that I'm gonna want to cut that up and make other things out of it. So I should probably just do a sample pack around this whole idea, to be honest. But there's lots of things that need to happen. But how I would do this is I would put an audio track below my instrument rack and enable resampling, and then I'm just gonna hit go on this thing, and then also turn all this stuff off, right? And then I'm gonna need to turn this on. All right, and let's do a longer one maybe. I'm gonna go down an octave. Gnarly. So let me actually change this again. Let me go back to wave shaping. And I liked more bands better. Let me just do something like that. Oh, that was a good one. See if I can get some glide going, maybe. And now maybe let's change this. Let me just change the wave shaper, because this always makes a big difference. That was cool. We got some nice stuff after it. All right, that'll be, I could honestly do this all day, but that, you know, just is what it is. So let's drag that out so we have the whole audio file. Then now what I would do at this step, after all that, is I would basically just go and chop this up, you know. You could take this track and solo it and just listen back to what I think. Actually, let me go to the end, because that's where I think some of the baddest shit was. Let me go here. I was like playing it, so this would have to probably turn into some kind of loop or something. Let me see if I can get like a long note that I could chop out. Maybe go back here. Yeah, something like that. So I would take that maybe, and then we would take this and I could throw that into a sampler somewhere. And you could even put a tail on it. That could work. No. This could maybe work. I just would want to filter it a little bit. I like that. Actually, I like that a lot. I like it a lot. Let me take that out. And then just put a tail on it maybe, and that's it. Yeah, I could, this is clean. I could throw that into a sampler and just have it be something. But anyway, this is getting into pretty experimental stuff. This video is getting kind of long, so glad to be back. Let me know if there's any other topics you want me to talk about or any of that kind of stuff. On a final note, if you want to support this, I know I had to take a break for quite a while, but if we want to prevent that from happening, you can do that for free. You just like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. You know how YouTube works. But also, I have a website called Glitch Magic, which is a sample website. If you buy things there, that supports this channel. So if you want to show the love there, that's cool. And if you have something else you would rather do, just tell me and I can set that up. So anyway, until next time, peace.